number 10, we have the legend of the Angels. This is an ancient urban legend that has fueled a modern day one. Also, I want to say that Angels in Antarctica is a great name for a band. So basically, in the book of Enoch, it says that angels, but not good ones, bad ones who wanted to breed with humans, were banished and trapped. Shock, drama. A lot of people have interpreted this to be in Antarctica. Now this old theory keeps on resurfacing. In March 2017, Israeli News Live published an article called "The Fallen Angels Living in Antarctica Are Still Alive," but like, are they?
Next up at number 9 now we have the abandoned huts. On November 1st, 1911, British explorer Robert Falcon Scott departed from Cape Evans on his Terra Nova expedition, trying to become the first human to reach the South Pole. They made it to the South Pole, but sadly they found they had been beaten to it by a group of Norwegians led by Amundsen. The team faced unusually bad weather on their return journey and tragically died before they could even reach their hut with all of their supplies. The hut was used by another team in 1917, but after that it was abandoned. For years it was slowly covered in ice and snow until 1956 when a US expeditionary party dug it out. It was found to be in a remarkably well preserved state. The beds were as they left them, so too were their scientific instruments. Canned food still sits on the shelves. A London newspaper from that time is on one of the desks. The frozen and dry environment of Antarctica have preserved a lot of things, but decay does still occur there. Visitors to the Discovery Hut discovered the now century-old seal meat as smelling quite rancid, and some people thought that the huts themselves are now affected by fungal decay. Moving on to number 8 now, we have bacteria. In 2008, scientists managed to revive bacterium extracted from Antarctic ice that was 8 million years old. You heard me right, 8 million years. Right away, many people became concerned. Was this a danger? It sounded a bit like the start of a Hollywood movie where the bacteria goes on to wipe out the whole of humanity. The scientists assured the public though that there was nothing to worry about and that the bacteria was unlikely to cause human diseases. You'll note that they said unlikely though. It's not definitely impossible. This bacteria is so old that when it came into existence 8 million years ago, the common ancestor of humans and chimpanzees was alive on the planet. So, how are these things still alive? Well, Paul Falowski of Rutgers University described the bacteria as having been in a suspended state of animation for 8 million years, and that global warming melting glaciers could result in the release of more ancient organisms into the sea. Next up at number 7 now, we have the pyramid. In November 2016, the internet was abuzz with talk of a pyramid that had been found buried in the Antarctic ice. Now before you dismiss this as nonsense, take a look at this picture. Yeah, that does look a lot like a pyramid. It was first discovered by the British Antarctic expedition of 1910 to 1913. They were stunned by its appearance and decided to name it the Pyramid, a name still used on geological surveys of the area. It's located in the Ellsworth Mountains, which is a range more than 400 kilometers long. The pyramid is one of the peaks of this mountain range. Naturally, you know what I'm going to say next. Many conspiracy theorists stated that this is proof of an ancient civilization that lived on Antarctica before being consumed by the ice and their existence covered up by today's governments. Of course, experts have dismissed all of this, saying that pyramids are not a complicated shape and are not an uncommon appearance in nature. What do you guys think? Next up at number 6 now, we have the lake. Lake Vostok is one of the biggest lakes on the planet. If you've never heard of it, don't worry, that's probably because Lake Vostok is buried underneath more than 2 miles of ice in Antarctica. It's been covered in ice for at least 15 million years, but it's still liquid down there. The crushing layer of ice from above and geothermal activity below have ensured that. Its presence was first suggested in the 1960s by a Russian pilot who noticed a large smooth patch of ice above the lake from the air. Radar experiments by British and Russian researchers in 1996 confirmed the lake's existence. The lake is massive, 143 miles long, 31 miles wide, and up to 2,625 feet deep. In 2012, Russian scientists managed to successfully drill a hole down to the lake's water. They believe that down there is microbial life that is unique from everything else here on Earth, having been isolated for 15 million years. Now the search begins. Next up at number 5 now, we have ALLAN Hills 84001. In 1984, a team of US meteorite hunters discovered a Martian meteorite in Antarctica's ice. It was only about 4.3 pounds, but by 1996 it was causing quite a stir when a group of scientists claimed they had found evidence of microscopic life in the actual meteorite. Was this proof of life on Mars, or at least that life used to be on Mars because they thought it was fossilized? The media went into a frenzy either way. Even US President Bill Clinton gave a speech about it. The hysteria was because the strange chain structures on that meteorite looked like they could have been fossilized bacteria. There was also the fact that the meteorite broke off from Mars about 17 million years ago during a time when Mars had liquid water on its surface and carbon dioxide in its atmosphere. It seemed like life could have been around then. Eventually these claims were rejected though, and the features of the meteorite were explained without requiring life to be present. The meteorite now remains on display in the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History. Moving on to number 4 now, we have the dinosaur. In February 2019, the fossil of a new species of reptile was announced. It had been found by researchers in the Antarctic ice during a 2010-2011 expedition. It's believed to be an early relative of dinosaurs who lived in Antarctica millions of years before the continent drifted to its position over the South Pole and became uninhabitable for most complex life forms. Around 250 million years ago, Antarctica was covered in lush forests and rivers with many species of wildlife living there, including reptiles. The temperature is thought to have almost never dropped below freezing point. The scientists named the iguana-sized reptile Antarctanax shackletoni. Antarctanax translates to Antarctic King, and Shackletoni is in honor of the Antarctic explorer Ernest Shackleton. Moving on to number 3 now, we have patchy mass. In June 2018, YouTube user WowForReal made a video showing his discovery of a 14-mile structure buried in Antarctica. He made the discovery using Google Maps and described it as a patchy mass that you could easily see from outer space. He said he'd used Google Maps to search the entire continent before and had never found anything like this. He even pointed out that there were strange brush strokes over the mass, which made him think someone was trying to cover this up. It didn't take long before people started speculating about what was going on here. The YouTuber himself put forward the idea that if the brush effect was removed, perhaps we'd see some sort of giant UFO mothership buried in ice. In all probability, it's probably just a research facility, but we still don't know for sure yet, as this strange block still remains on Google Maps to this day. You can even go and see it for yourself. Coming in number 2 now, we have the wreckage. In January 2013, 3 Canadian men took off in a plane from the Amundsen Scott South Pole Research Station en route to an Italian research base in Terra Nova Bay. At some point during the journey, the emergency transmitter went off and a search party was sent out to find them. Bad weather hampered rescue efforts, and after 6 days they finally found the plane, but it was too late to save them. It had crashed into one of Antarctica's highest mountains. The rescue team were unable to get into the cockpit and were only able to retrieve some luggage. After 4 hours there, they determined it was too risky to stay any longer as the weather was taking a serious turn for the worse, and they were afraid of an avalanche occurring. It took 9 months before another team set out during Antarctica's summer period to retrieve the frozen remains of the 3 Canadian men. And finally, number 1 now, we have Endurance. We talked about the explorer Shackleton earlier. Well, Endurance was the name of the ship that he used to go to Antarctica in the first place. The ship was abandoned by Shackleton and his team when she was crushed by ice in the Weddell Sea off Antarctica, causing her to sink. In the years since then, there have been 3 expeditions that have tried and failed to locate Endurance. In 2018, that changed though. A team at the Scott Polar Research Institute launched a new search using more sophisticated technology, such as GPS and drones, to help them see possible routes in the ice. They also used an autonomous underwater vehicle. The video you're watching right now was released in February 2019, and according to what I've read, the search for Endurance is happening at this moment, looking for a ship thousands of feet beneath the frigid waves. I thought I'd end on this one because it's not been discovered quite yet, and that's kind of exciting. There's a lot more to uncover in the incredible world of Antarctica.
Number 10, a giant hole. And by giant, I mean 2/3 the area of Manhattan and nearly 1,000 feet tall, large enough to have once held 15 billion tons of ice. Beneath the Thwaites Glacier in West Antarctica, there is a gap between the glacier and the bedrock that was discovered only recently by NASA scientists. Much of the void, as they are calling it, is a result of the melting that has occurred over the last few years. According to Eric Rigneau, scientists had suspected that the Thwaites Glacier was not attached to the bedrock beneath it. This void in the ice has helped reveal to researchers how much the ground has shifted between 1992 to 2017 and continues to lead to more discoveries, and who knows what's next?
Coming in at number 9, we have The Ice is Alive. The ice is alive with the sound of singing. Ah. any excuse, I swear. Some people think that Antarctica is a pure beast unto itself. It's a weather demon. The ice is sentient, they believe it, and it can choose when to mess with you. Around 1,000 people have died in Antarctica in the past 200 years as a result of serious disaster, but a further 20 or so explorers have died on the ice. Now, this includes Henry Wolseley, Ernest Shackleton, and Andreas Beck. Expeditionists are prepared for the worst, but sometimes the elements turn. This has led to many suggesting that the ice is alive, something that seems backed up by the continent's mysterious singing ice. Don't believe me? Have a listen. Coming into number 8, we have the spirits of Flight 901. On the 28th of November 1979, Air New Zealand Flight 901 crashed into Mount Erebus on Ross Island in Antarctica. This killed 237 passengers and 20 crew and was honestly a really massive disaster, especially for New Zealand. The flight was a tourist flight in which passengers would get a chance to see Antarctica from the plane, which sounds pretty cool. Unfortunately, the weather turned and the pilot was inexperienced and got disorientated in the whiteout. He crashed into the mountain. Unfortunately, there were no survivors. Now, some of the bodies were stored at the McMurdo station on Ross Island before being flown back to New Zealand. Not all of the bodies were found either. Many people think that the McMurdo station is haunted, and those who have visited have reported a wrong feeling and perhaps a feeling of being watched. Maybe it's the ghostly presence of victims of the plane crash. Some people link the tragedy of the Air New Zealand flight to the no-fly zone, an urban legend of the ice wall. That's coming in at number 7. Literal troll lol 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 lol. Good old flat earthers. Time and time again, they just keep on coming back into these lists. Has anyone seen mine and Charlotte Dobray's interview with flat earther Mad Mike Hughes, by the way? It's on Inform Overload and is seriously worth a watch. It's going to be in the forthcoming Rocket Man movie. I wish that I'd asked him about the ice wall. Honestly, I really wish so. Basically, the Flat Earth Society believes that there is a huge 150-foot ice wall surrounding the coast of Antarctica. What is on the other side of the wall? Well, they haven't been, so they can't tell you. No one has been, apparently. They say that the world airlines are in cahoots and have signed a pact agreeing never to fly there. In total fairness, the explorer James Clark Ross, the British expeditionist who went to Antarctica in the mid-1800s, did actually write about an icy wall in his travel notes. He said, I quote, "It was an obstruction of such character as to leave no doubt in my mind as to our future proceedings, for we might as well sail through the cliffs of Dover as to penetrate such a mass." Although, of course, many historians and those who have actually read the full extent of his journals will know that he is talking about an ice shelf, the Ross Ice Shelf that was named after him. This shelf is not 150 meters tall, it is just 50 meters and you can fly over it. Yes, the Air New Zealand flight did crash in Antarctica, but plenty of previously scheduled flights have flown over and back prior to the crash. Really, this is just a legend for the conspiracists. Coming into number 6, we have John Kerry and the Antarctica Energy Beam. John Kerry was the 68th United States Secretary of State under Barack Obama. For those that aren't aware, this job is all about foreign policy. Now, in 2016, John Kerry visited Antarctica, and the reason for the trip has been somewhat shrouded in mystery. Good old InfoWars thinks that it has something to do with aliens. Others say that Barack Obama has a secret base there. Alex Jones of InfoWars claimed on Twitter that Kerry had split a hurricane up using an energy beam. Weird. Some people also draw some strange conclusions from the fact that Kerry went from Antarctica to New Zealand and was followed by an earthquake. Coming into number 5, we have the Ghost of Blood Falls. Ah, the Ghosts of Blood Falls. It sounds pretty grim, right? Blood Falls comes up a lot when we talk about Antarctica. It's one of the most visually dramatic places on Earth. Blood Falls is actually an area of the Taylor Glacier, which is named after Australian explorer Griffith Taylor, who discovered the macabre site in 1911. Now, the waterfall is a result of the Antarctic ice melting, and it looks like a giant bleeding gash in the snow. No wonder legend has it that the falls are haunted by evil spirits. It certainly is one of the most scary places on Earth, simply for its visuals. Although I have to say it isn't actually blood pouring from the glacier, it's an iron oxide tainted flow of salt water. The iron gives the water its bright red colour. Still though, seeing as it's in the snow, it's all red and very dramatic. If you look at it far off, it does look like a giant has been murdered or something, which is probably why people get an eerie feeling in the area. When I say people, few people have actually been there, but you know, a lot of people in blogs online. Coming in at number 4, we have the Nazi tunnels. It seems that Hitler went on a secret mission for oil in Antarctica in 1938, but many people believe that the leader of the Third Reich was constructing secret tunnels in a war bunker. It seems that Germany claimed an area of Antarctica called New Swabia, and the legends range from understandable to simply wild. Some say Hitler survived the war and escaped to South America. Some say he was spotted in Argentina. From there, it was said that he ventured to the very tip of Patagonia and then into his Antarctic bunker to hide away for the rest of his life. Others say he was frozen and hidden there, which is pretty wild. Coming into number 3, we have the ghost of Ernest Shackleton. Sadly, Sir Ernest Henry Shackleton died on his final expedition to Antarctica before he made it to the icy continent. He had previously been during his trans-Antarctic expedition in 1914 to 1917, but sadly the Irish explorer was never to return, except perhaps in the afterlife. It seems that his original hut, which still stands in the Antarctic, is actually haunted by his spirit. Basically, well, so the legend has it anyway. In 1958, explorer Sir Edmund Hillary decided to follow in the steps of the late expeditioner. In his expedition journal, he wrote, "I remember when I first went to Shackleton's hut, and I'm not a person who really sees things very much, but I went inside the door. When I opened the door, it's rather sort of a bare hut inside, but I distinctly saw Shackleton walking towards me and welcoming me, and then he sort of flashed away and he was gone. Spooky." At least he was welcoming though. You gotta love a welcoming ghost. Coming into number 2, we have the lost civilization. Some say that underneath the thick ice of the Antarctic there is a lost civilization. Humans as we know came to be around 200,000 years ago, but what if all the information we have right now isn't actually all of the information? Africa and Antarctica separated 160 million years ago, and some say that long ago an ancient civilization existed alongside the dinosaurs, but are now lost to us. Others say that the timeline of these humans could be much more recent, saying that there is crustal displacement, which meant that large parts of Antarctica were ice-free 12,000 years ago. This could have meant that ancient humans lived there. Now, if we know anything from evolution, it's actually far more likely. Greek philosopher Plato mentioned the city of Atlantis, which was inhabited by half humans, half gods, which actually sounds rather a lot like the descriptions of an angel to me, which, hang on for a hot minute, that sounds pretty familiar. Is the lost city of Atlantis buried under the ice, or, once again, is it angels? Finally, coming in at number 1, we have aliens. Aliens, 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 aliens. For anyone who's ever watched me on Inform Overload, that's my Aliens song and I like singing it. It's long been speculated that there is something shifty going on down in Old Auntie. That's my new name for Antarctica. Should have used it sooner really. In September 2018, Google Earth images seem to show mysterious structures becoming visible under the melting ice. The structures appear in a settlement around the size of a small town, which may make people think that actually this is a lost city, but there are tracks and what looks like an airstrip. This is merely added fuel to the aliens in anti-theory. Is it aliens? A lot of people think so.
Starting off number 10 now, we have blood falls. In 1911, scientists noticed something pretty horrifying around cliffs in Antarctica. It looked like some of them were oozing blood. It shocked the world. What could possibly be producing these rivers of blood? Was there something hidden within the ice that we didn't know about? Something that could only exist in these hostile alien conditions of Antarctica? At the time, scientists believed it was being caused by algae discoloring the water. The hypothesis was never verified though. In 2017, the mystery was finally solved thanks to research by the University of Alaska Fairbanks. The deep red coloring is due to oxidized iron in brine salt water. It's essentially the same process that makes iron go dark red when it rusts. When the iron-rich salt water comes into contact with the oxygen on the surface, the iron oxidizes and this colors the water and ice red. I think we can all breathe a sigh of relief now that there isn't some hellish blood monster living under the Antarctic ice.
Number 9, super seals. I'm very glad that I will never know what it's like to survive in the perilous and unforgiving icy tundra that is Antarctica, especially since you need to be a super seal to survive there. Weddell seals had researchers perplexed for a while because they have an uncanny ability of knowing where the gaps in the ice are so they can come up for air. Weddell seals can dive down hundreds of meters while hunting and still find their way up to breathing holes with ease. After years of study, in 2014 the National Science Foundation announced the apparent cause. They may have a sixth sense and and no, it's not that they can see other dead seals. By using the Earth's magnetic field as a natural GPS, these seals are able to find the openings in the ice. Still crazy to me. So not only are they adorable, incredible divers and hunters, they can predict where they need to go in order to survive, which is insane to me. Number 8, glass sponges. No, they aren't actually made of glass, but the reason they are called that is because of the fact that their skeletons contain silica, which is a component of glass. They act as filters and basically pick up any food that passes by and can live for centuries. They don't only grow in Antarctica, but they seem to be playing a very curious role in the area. Ever since ice shelves began disappearing due to global warming, the appearance of glass sponges has increased. There seems to be a correlation between the two, and scientists are trying to work out what the exact cause is. If they figure it out, they will not only be able to understand the ecology better, but also understand how these creatures store carbon. This could help researchers understand some of the key components behind climate change, so it is definitely a mystery worth solving. Number 7, a perfect rectangle. Now, usually when someone says icebergs, first you think of the Titanic, rest in peace, and 2, you might imagine them looking massive and jagged and the whole metaphor of like there's so much going on beneath. But NASA spotted one that caused a couple furrowed brows. It was perfectly rectangular. This type of iceberg actually has a name, and they are called tabular icebergs. They have steep, nearly vertical sides and a flat top. They spotted what was essentially a massive ice sheet cake while doing a routine aerial survey. NASA tweeted the reason for this anomaly and said, "The iceberg's sharp angles and flat surface indicate that it probably recently calved from the ice shelf. The rectangular ice sheet itself is so massive that if it were to melt, the amount of water could fill every swimming pool in California several times over." Crazy. That just goes to show how much water is actually in Antarctica. Number 6, a lava lake. And no, I didn't say lava cake, but boy do I wish I did. But it is still surprising that somewhere tucked beneath all of that ice there is a pool of lava? What? On Saunders Island there lives one of 8 lava lakes found in the world. Scientists from the University College London and the British Antarctic Survey discovered the lake on the island due to thermal imaging from satellite data. They caught images of the volcano of Mount Michel and noticed a lake of lava sitting within its crater around 700 feet in diameter. The temperature reads at around 1,812 to 2,334 degrees Fahrenheit, which is around 989 or 1,279 degrees Celsius. Which I guess isn't that surprising because it's lava. It's the hottest thing ever. But despite lava bubbling in volcanoes being a very common image associated with volcanoes, there have actually only been 8 ever seen. For the most part, lava dries into rock, which is the case with most of the 1,500 volcanoes on the Earth. So why, especially in such a cold climate, does this one stay molten? Scientists presume it's due to a combination of gases and steam that kind of lock in the heat, but they need to get a closer look, which could take years. Number 5, green icebergs. Actual green, they're jade green. Green icebergs are a weird phenomenon that probably doesn't suit the default image of icebergs in your brain. All the way back to the 18th century, green icebergs have raised many questions and have even had myths built around them. For over 200 years, the mystery of why they happen is finally close to being solved. A research team at the University of Washington believe they have the answer to their unusual hue. Usually icebergs appear white and light blue because of the water, but now Stephen Warren has a new theory, and it relates to the same explanation for blood falls from our last video, which by the way, if you haven't watched it, go do that now. He believes that iron oxides are responsible for changing the color. Iron oxides are the same compound that create red-brown rust. When they react to oxygen, the iron oxides change the color of the ice. If this study is proven, this could also explain where phytoplankton get their nutrients from, and therefore explain how the whole ecosystem works. So very interesting. Number 4, creepy creatures. Researchers from the British Antarctic Survey were investigating the Filchner-Ronne ice shelf and were set on getting a sample of the sediment core. While drilling around 900 meters through the shelf, the drill hit a rock. But not only that, the camera attached to the drill caught a wealth of creatures latched onto the rock. These creatures, who probably haven't seen the light of day for thousands of years, were suddenly there, making scientists' jaws drop to the floor. Animals similar to sponges were attached, but this discovery opened up all new ideas about life on Earth. These creatures are supposed to rely on food to drift past in order to survive, but these ones are stationary and they are 1,500 kilometers upstream from the closest source of photosynthesis. How are they getting their nutrients and where? Number 3, Shackleton's lost lost ship. Somewhere trapped by mountains of ice is the Endurance. In 1915, Sir Ernest Shackleton along with his crew had to abandon ship when the Endurance slipped beneath the Weddell Sea. The frozen water crushed the hull, so the crew escaped towards South Georgia Island in lifeboats. They traveled 720 nautical miles before they were rescued and left the Endurance where it continues to endure beneath the waves. The idea of recovering the ship has captivated the minds and hearts of seafaring historians and archaeologists for decades. Finally, a UK-led expedition attempted to relieve the ship of its glacial prison in 2019. They made a harrowing attempt but sadly came back with nothing. They sent a submarine to the ocean floor to look for the sunken polar yacht, but sadly the water took that too. They lost contact with it. One of the expedition members stated, like Shackleton before us, who described the graveyard of Endurance as the worst portion of the worst sea in the world, our well-laid plans were overcome by the rapidly moving ice and what Shackleton called the evil conditions of the Weddell Sea. Number 2. The Anomaly. Somewhere beneath the frozen wasteland of Wilkes Land in Antarctica, there is something that could change our entire understanding of history. The area they are most curious about is 151 miles across and dives 2,700 feet deep. The most common hypothesis for what is under there is a massive asteroid, and not the one I previously mentioned that blew up before it hit last video. This asteroid is twice the size of the one that destroyed the dinosaurs. If it is indeed beneath the ice, it could be the asteroid that caused the Permian-Triassic extinction event which killed 96% of Earth's sea creatures. Of course, other ideas of what the object could be extend to a massive UFO, and even a portal to a mysterious underworld called the Hollow Earth. The reason scientists believe there is something is due to what is called the Wilkes Land gravity anomaly, first discovered in 2006. NASA spotted gravitational changes which indicate an object of immense size. The biggest clue that it is an asteroid is the fact it's sitting in a 300-mile wide crater, so that makes sense. Whether or not you agree is up to you until the day we finally uncover it, but we can all at least agree that something is down there. But what exactly? Who knows? Number 1. Aliens and Atlantis. Antarctica looks like a secret, lying in wait beneath the cold, hard ice and unforgiving mountains. So it's no wonder how year after year dozens of people across the earth report UFO sightings on Google Maps, and strange snow patterns belonging to ancient beings. Despite its freezing temperatures, this place is a hotspot for conspiracies and mysteries, including those that believe the lost city of Atlantis is somewhere tucked away. Perhaps the massive unknown object beneath the crater is in fact just that, a lost city. After all, as I mentioned in part 1, Antarctica used to be a tropical oasis before it froze over. Who and what got left behind? Though it is highly likely that a civilization would have thrived here, scientists still haven't found any proof that one did, let alone anything that points to Atlantis. Just like the ocean, we have barely scratched the surface on what we know about this vast icy tundra, and we'll probably never really know.